I'm sitting on a small wooden balcony in Chiang Mai at 7 in the morning. My name is Richard. I'm 77 years old. 5 years ago, I was standing in an empty house in Modesto, California, with $2,200 to my name. No wife, no future. And a very quiet thought I'm not proud of, but I'm not going to lie about either. I thought maybe I should just be done. Today I'm looking at a mountain called Doi Suthep, and a woman named Malay is bringing me coffee, and I'm grateful I did not do it. Let me tell you how. I grew up in Modesto, California. My dad worked at a canning plant for 34 years. My mom raised 5 kids and cleaned houses on the side. I was the second oldest. Nothing about my childhood was interesting, which was fine by me. We had beans and rice a lot. We had one car. My dad drank Ham's beer on Friday nights and fell asleep in a green recliner watching Gunsmoke. I graduated in 1966. I did not go to college. I got drafted 3 months later and I spent 18 months in Vietnam. And I'm not going to make this a war story either. I came home in 1968 with a piece of shrapnel still in my hip that they decided was not worth digging out, and I still walk with a small hitch on damn mornings because of it. I got my honorable discharge, my VA card, and I went to work. I spent 39 years as an electrician. Started as an apprentice at 19, retired at 58 because my back was giving out and I could still do the paperwork side of the trade for a smaller shop for a few more years, which I did until I was 63. I want to tell you plain that I made good money in that trade. Not great money, good money, union wages for most of it. My last full year, I cleared $72,000, which for Modesto in 2009 was solid. I married Ellen in 1971. She worked at Modesto General Hospital in the billing department for 28 years. We had one daughter, Jenny. We bought a 3-bedroom stucco house on the north side of town in 1975 for $41,000, and we lived in that house for 47 years. We raised Jenny there. We buried both my parents from that house and both of hers. We had backyard barbecues every 4th of July for 30 years running. Here is where the story breaks apart, and I'm going to tell you the truth because I promised myself I would. Ellen was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in the spring of 2019. She was 71. I want to skip most of this. I have to skip most of this, or I will not get through it. She lived 13 months. The last 4, she could not eat without help. Our insurance covered part of it. Not enough. Home hospice was not covered at the level we needed. The chemo she wanted to try, a newer protocol out of a hospital in San Francisco, was experimental and out of pocket. I did not care about the money. I want you to know I did not care about the money. She looked at me one afternoon in April of 2020 and said, "Richard, is this bankrupting us?" And I said, "No, honey, we're fine." And I was lying to her face, and she knew I was, and she let me lie because she wanted to try the treatment. She died on the 12th of June, 2020, in the middle of the pandemic. I was allowed in the room because it was hospice by then. I held her hand. She was 72. I was 72. I came home from the funeral to an empty house, and I sat at the kitchen table where we had eaten 47 years of dinners. And I opened the folder our accountant had given me the week before, and I understood what I had done. I had drained the retirement account, $243,000, gone to medical bills across 13 months. I had a second mortgage on the house I did not remember taking out until I saw my own signature on the paperwork. $48,000 against a house that was almost paid off. I had $41,000 in credit card debt across 4 cars I had been rotating balances between since December. I had a car loan on the Toyota Camry I had bought Ellen in 2018 that I had refinanced twice. I had $11,000 in a checking account and my social security. That was it. That was everything. I was 72 years old. I had just buried the woman I had loved since I was 23, and I was broke. Not tight, broke, in the kind of way where you cannot see the bottom. I did what men my age do. I did nothing. I sat in that house for 18 months. I did not tell Jenny how bad it was. She had her own things going on. A divorce that had been slow motion for 2 years and a boy of her own in high school. I sold Ellen's Camry to a guy for $13,500. I paid off 2 of the credit cards with it. I lived on Social Security and the last of my checking, and I let the second mortgage default because I could not make both payments. The house went into foreclosure in early 2022. I did not fight it. I could not have won. I sold what I could at a garage sale that took me 4 Saturdays and made me $2,200. I gave the rest away or set it out on the curb. I moved into a residence hotel on 9th Street in Modesto that rented weekly for $285 a week. And I told Jenny I had downsized, which was the word I used because I could not bring myself to say the other words. I lived in that residence hotel for 6 months. 1 room, a hot plate, a shared bathroom down the hall, a window that looked at a parking lot. Social Security was $2,084 a month for me. Rent alone was $1,140. Food, medicine, phone, the little things took the rest. Some months I ran out of money on day 23 and lived on rice and eggs for the last week. I sat in a room one night in November of 2022. I had a bottle of wild turkey I had bought with money I did not have. I had my old service pistol that I had kept clean in a case for 54 years. I sat on the edge of the bed and I looked at both of them on the little desk in front of me, and I want to tell you the truth. I thought about it. I thought about it for a long time. What stopped me was a phone call. Jenny called at 9:42 at night. She had never called me at night in her life. She said, "Daddy, are you okay? I had a bad feeling." I said, "I'm okay, sweetheart. I'm okay. I love you." She said, "I love you too, Dad. Sleep good." She hung up. I put the pistol back in the case. I poured the bottle down the sink. I sat on the edge of that bed and I cried for a long time. And then I opened my laptop, which I had bought used from a pawn shop for $90, and I typed into a search bar something I would never have typed a year before. I typed cheapest countries to retire on Social Security. I did not sleep that night. I read until the parking lot light outside my window turned pale and the shift change at the hospital across the street started. Cars pulling in and out. I read 6 articles. Then I read a dozen more. Portugal, Mexico, Ecuador, Vietnam, the Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia. Every one of them had rough monthly cost estimates, and every single number was less than what I was paying in rent alone in Modesto. I closed the laptop at 7 in the morning. I made instant coffee on the hot plate. I stood at the window with a cup in my hand and I looked out at that parking lot and I said out loud in an empty room, "You are 72 years old. What are you doing?" I opened the laptop back up. Over the next 2 months, I turned into somebody I did not know. I want to describe this specifically because I know some of you listening are the same kind of man I was. A guy who has not learned a new thing on purpose in 20 years. And I want you to know it is possible. I watched YouTube channels. I found a guy named Rika in the Philippines. I found an Australian couple in Chiang Mai. I found a woman named Kyla in Dumaguete. I found a channel out of Cuenca, Ecuador. I joined 3 Facebook groups. I asked questions and I got answers from strangers who had no reason to be kind to me and were kind anyway. I made a spreadsheet. I had not opened Excel in 11 years. I sat in that residence hotel with a legal pad and I wrote down every category: rent, electric, water, internet, phone, groceries, eating out, health insurance, transportation, visa fees, airfare to get there. Then I put the numbers in from real budgets that real expats had posted with receipts. The Philippines came in around 1,150 a month, comfortable. Ecuador, 1,300. Mexico, 1,400, depending on the city. Portugal, 1,700, and the visa was getting harder every year. Vietnam, 1,000 and change, but the visa situation for retirees was harder than the others. Thailand kept coming up in Chiang Mai at around 1,200 a month for a real life. Not survival, a real life. A 1-bedroom apartment, aircon, eating out most meals, health insurance, transportation, and money left over. $884 a month left over. On my Social Security, in Modesto, I was running out on day 23. In Chiang Mai, I was going to have almost 900 left over every single month. I stared at that spreadsheet for a long time. I ran the visa numbers. Thailand needed 800,000 baht in a Thai bank as a deposit, about $22,400 or proof of 65,000 baht a month income, about $1,830. My Social Security was 2,084. I qualified on the income alone. I did not have 800,000 baht. I had $1,100 in a checking account and no house and no car. Here is where the shame came in. I sat in that room and I understood I could not get to Thailand. I could not afford the plane ticket. I could not afford a scouting trip. I could not do what every YouTube video and every Facebook post told me to do, which was go and look first. I did not have go and look money. I had barely have dinner money. I called Jenny 2 days before Christmas. I told her the truth. All of it. The house, the foreclosure, the residence hotel, the pistol on the desk in November, the wild turkey down the sink, the spreadsheet, the plan I could not afford. She was quiet on the phone for a long time. Then she started to cry. Then she got angry. Then she got quiet again. Then she said, "Daddy, are you telling me you sat in a hotel room in Modesto with a gun on the desk and did not call me?" I said, "Sweetheart, I could not put that on you." She said, "You did put that on me. You put that on me right now. You're telling me now, and you're telling me because you need help. And you should have told me a year ago, and I would have driven up and got you, and you would have slept on my couch, and we would have figured it out. Do you hear me?" I said, "I hear you." She said, "Come stay with me. Come stay with me right now. Drive down tonight." I said, "Jenny, I am not doing that. I am not going to be another thing you have to carry. Your mother would rise up and slap me. You know she would." She was quiet. Then she said, "Then what, Dad? What is the plan?" I said, "I want to go to Thailand. I have run the numbers. It works on my Social Security. I would live better there than I am living here. I do not have the money for the plane ticket. That is where I am. Long silence. Then Jenny said, how much is the plane ticket? I said, about 1,100 one way if I book 6 weeks out. She said, and how much to set up, deposit on an apartment, visa fees, all of it. I said, Wayne, that is a guy from Michigan I have been emailing with who lives in Chiang Mai. He told me, plan on $5,000. Total to land, get an apartment, get a scooter, pay the visa agent, and eat for the first month. Jenny said, Dad, I have that. I said, no. She said, Dad, my grandmother, Mom's mom, left me $12,000 in 2014. I have never touched it. It is sitting in an account. It is your money. It is Mom's mother's money. I am giving it to you. Do not fight me. I said, Jenny, I cannot. She said, Daddy, listen to me. If you die in a hotel room in Modesto because you are too proud to take $12,000 from your daughter, that is not even really my money. I will never forgive you, and I will never forgive myself. Take it. I sat in that residence hotel with the phone against my ear, and I cried for the second time in a month, and I said, okay. She wired me $6,000 the next Monday. She told me she would send the rest when I landed. She said, I want you gone by March. I want you out of the hotel. I booked the plane ticket that afternoon, round trip, because Wayne told me the immigration officer might ask to see an onward ticket. $1,140, Modesto to San Francisco to Taipei to Chiang Mai, departing on March 14th of 2023. I applied for my passport. I was 72 years old and I had never owned one. Not since the army. It cost me $140 and took 9 weeks because of a backlog. I went to Wells Fargo and opened a fresh checking account with the money Jenny had wired. I bought a used laptop for $180. I bought 2 suitcases at Ross for $68 total. I gave notice at the residence hotel. I gave away most of what was in my room, which was not much. I kept photos, Ellen's wedding ring, a small box of letters, my dad's watch, and the framed picture of Jenny in her cap and gown from Modesto Junior College in 1992. The night before I flew, Jenny drove up from Fresno. She and my grandson Tyler, 16, big kid, sat in that residence hotel room with me. Tyler had made me a card that said, Grandpa, kick the world's butt in Thailand. Jenny cried when she read it out loud. I cried. Tyler stood there like a 16-year-old and did not know what to do with 2 adults crying, and eventually he hugged me, and it was the first time I had been held by another person in 9 months. Jenny drove me to Sacramento Airport at 4 in the morning. She parked and walked me all the way to the security line. She hugged me hard and stepped back and looked at me and said, Daddy, do not die over there. Do not die alone in an apartment in Thailand. Promise me. I said, I promise. She said, text me every day. I do not care about the time zone. Every day. I said, every day. I got through security and I turned around and she was still standing there. I waved. She waved. I walked to my gate. I sat down at the gate with 2 hours to kill, and I opened my laptop and I looked at my checking account balance, $5,820. That was every dollar I had in the world. 72 years old, and every dollar I had came from my dead wife's mother by way of my daughter. I want to be honest about what I felt sitting there. I did not feel excited. I did not feel adventurous. I felt small. I felt like a failure of a man being sent overseas because he could not manage a life in his own country. I got on the plane. I flew 29 hours through San Francisco and Taipei and I landed at Chiang Mai International Airport at 9 at night on March 15th of 2023. I walked off that plane into a jet bridge that was warm and humid, and I walked through immigration where the officer stamped my passport and smiled and said, "Welcome to Thailand," and I walked out into the arrivals hall. Wayne was standing there with a small sign that said, "Papa Richard, 73 years old, tall gray ponytail, blue shirt." He shook my hand and did not let go for a second longer than a normal handshake. He said, "You made it, brother." I said, "I made it." He took one of my suitcases without asking and walked me out to his old white Toyota Hilux in the parking lot. Warm night air, crickets, a big Buddha statue lit up above the terminal building. He put my bags in the back and opened the passenger door for me. He said, "Tomorrow we have a full day. I have 3 apartments for you to look at, all under 9,000 baht, all in Santitam, all within walking distance of a market and my place. Tonight we are going to my house. You are sleeping in my guest room. Ellen is not going to be sitting there. Nobody is going to be there but you and a bed and a fan and a mango tree outside the window. And in the morning, we're going to eat rice soup at a cart run by a lady named Auntie Knock. And then we're going to go find you a home." I got in that truck. He shut the door. He walked around and got in the driver's seat. He started the engine and looked over at me. He said, "Richard, you made it. You're not going to die alone in a hotel room in California. You're here." I could not talk. I nodded. He said, "Welcome home, brother." He put the truck in gear and we drove out of the airport parking lot into a warm Thai night, and I looked out the window at the country I had never seen before, and I thought, all right, Ellen, here we go. I did not sleep well in Wayne's guest room, not because it was bad. It was fine. Ceiling fan, clean sheets, a window that opened onto a small garden where a bird was making a noise I had never heard before. I did not sleep because my body had been in survival mode for so long that lying down in a safe place with a full stomach and no bill collectors on the other side of the wall was a foreign experience to it. I lay there at 3 in the morning and I listened to the ceiling fan and I thought about the pistol in November and the phone call from Jenny, and I thought, how did I get from that room to this room? How did that happen? Wayne knocked on the door at 7. He had made coffee. He handed me a cup and said, "Auntie Knock opens at 7:30. We are going to walk. Your knee up for it." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Good. That is your first exercise in Thailand. Everything's walking. You will lose weight without trying. You will thank me." We walked 12 minutes to a small food cart on a corner. An older Thai woman with gray hair pulled back tight was stirring a big pot of raw soup. Wayne said, "Auntie Knock, this is Papa Richard. He's my friend from America. He is going to be a regular." She looked at me. She looked me up and down. She said, "Papa, you skinny. You eat." I said, "Yes, ma'am." She laughed. She said, "Ma'am, Papa is polite. You come every day. I make you fat again." She ladled rice soup into a big bowl for me, cracked an egg into it, added ginger and green onion and slices of pork. She handed me the bowl and pointed at a plastic stool. 40 baht, about $1.15. And I sat on the stool at a plastic table on a Chiang Mai sidewalk at 8 in the morning, and I ate a bowl of soup made by a woman I had known for 2 minutes who had already decided she was going to feed me back to health. And I want to tell you, I almost lost it right there at the table. I had to look up at the sky for a minute so Wayne would not see. He saw anyway. He did not say anything. He just ate his own soup and let me have my minute. Wayne had lined up 3 apartments for me to look at. All 3 were within a half-mile of his place in Santitham, which is a neighborhood just north of the old city. Quieter, more Thai than expat. A 15-minute walk from the moat and closer to a couple of good markets. Wayne had chosen it on purpose. He said, "You do not want Niman. Niman is the trendy foreigner neighborhood. More expensive, louder, full of digital nomads. Santitham is where you live if you actually live here." The first apartment was a 1-bedroom on the 4th floor of a small building. Aircon, a fridge, a decent bed, a bathroom with a hot water heater. 6,800 baht a month. About $195. The owner was a Thai woman in her 50s who lived on the ground floor. She spoke almost no English, but she smiled at me and gestured through the whole tour. Wayne translated. She wanted 3 months deposit up front and would take 1 month rent plus 1 month deposit for the first payment if I signed a 6-month lease. The second was newer, nicer, in a small condo building with a pool. 9,200 baht, about $265. Bigger balcony, louder street. I stood on the balcony and I heard a scooter go by every 7 seconds, and Wayne said, "You're going to hear that all day." The third was in an older building 3 blocks from Wayne. Ground floor, 1 bedroom, small kitchen. A little private patio with 2 plastic chairs and a rubber tree in a pot. 7,500 baht a month, water included. About $215. The landlord was an older Thai man named Kun Somchai, 64, retired from the government, spoke decent English. He walked me through the place. He said, "You are Wayne's friend?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Then you are welcome. Wayne is a good man. If you are his friend, you are a good man." I stood on that patio and I looked at the rubber tree and the 2 plastic chairs, and I said to Wayne, "This one." Wayne said, "You sure?" I said, "This one." I paid Kun Samchai 1 month rent, 7,500 baht, plus a 2-month deposit of 15,000 baht. Total 22,500 baht, about $645. Out of my checking account, out of Jenny's grandmother's money. He handed me a set of keys. He said, "You move in whenever you're ready, Papa Richard. Tomorrow if you like." I moved in the next morning. Wayne drove my 2 suitcases over in his truck. Auntie Knock came by an hour later with a small pot of rice soup she said she made too much of, which I am pretty sure was a lie. She looked around the empty apartment and clicked her tongue and said, "No plants. You need plants. I bring you plants." She brought me 2 plants the next day, a small palm and something with red leaves that I do not know the name of. She set them on the patio and pointed at each of them and said, "Water, 2 days. Only 2 days." And she left. The first month was learning the shape of a life. I want to walk you through it because that is the whole point of me sitting here and telling this. I bought a used scooter in week 2. Wayne came with me. It was a Honda Click, 5 years old, 34,000 kilometers, 18,000 baht, about $515. I had not ridden a scooter since I was in Vietnam, and I want to tell you I was scared. Wayne rode with me for the first 2 weeks, slow streets, side roads, teaching me the flow of traffic here, which is not chaos once you understand the rhythm, but takes some learning. I got my Thai driver's license in week 4. 2 hours at the office, a color test, a reflex test, 305 baht, about $9. In California, my last license renewal had cost me $42 and taken most of a day. I met with the visa agent Wayne had recommended in my third week. Her name was Kun Nan. Small office above a coffee shop. She was maybe 42, sharp, quiet, no sales pitch. She looked at my social security proof and said, Kun Richard, your income is high enough for the non-immigrant OA. You do not need the 800,000 baht deposit. We can do income only, 65,000 baht per month. You have $2,084 a month. That is about 73,000 baht at today's rate. You qualify. I said, how much will this cost me? She said, my fee is 15,000 baht. Government fees are 5,000 more. You need a medical certificate, 500 baht. You need a police background check letter from America, which we can walk you through. And you need to buy health insurance that meets the government minimum. That runs about 18,000 baht a year for someone your age. Total first year about 38,000 baht, about $1,090. I paid it in cash out of Jenny's grandmother's money. Kun Nan walked me through every form. She did not upsell me anything. She gave me a folder and said, come back in 3 weeks. 3 weeks later, I had a 1-year retirement visa stamped in my passport. I could stay in Thailand for a year. I could renew it every year as long as my social security kept paying. I sat in Kun Nan's office holding that passport and I looked at that stamp and I want to tell you what I felt. I felt safe. Legally, financially, physically safe. In the country I had been born in, at 72 years old, I had felt hunted for 2.5 years. I sat in an office in Chiang Mai and I felt safe. I walked through my monthly budget after month 1 and I want to give you the real numbers because that is why you are listening. Rent, 7,500 baht, $215. Electric, running the aircon at night and a fan during the day, 1,200 baht, $34. Water included in the rent, but I was told the landlord would bring it up if I ran hot. I did not. Internet with a router, Wayne helped me set up, 500 baht, $14. Thai SIM card with unlimited data, 250 baht, $7. Groceries at the market, mostly fruit, eggs, some rice, coffee, about 1,800 baht. $52. Eating out, which was 2 meals a day almost every day, at food carts and small local restaurants, about 4,200 baht, $120. Gas for the scooter, about 380 baht, $11. Health insurance, spread out monthly, about 1,500 baht, $43. Haircuts, 80 baht. Laundry with a lady down the street named Kun Mali, 200 baht a week. Coffee at a small shop I found called Rister, 8 to 3 or 4 mornings a week at 80 baht. Miscellaneous small stuff, about 1,900 baht for the month. $54 total, about 18,200 baht a month, $522. My social security was 2,084. Every month I had $1,562 left over on the same social security check that could not pay my rent in Modesto. I sat on that little patio in the second month of living in Chiang Mai. Auntie Nock's plants were still alive. The rubber tree was still there. Kun Somchai had waved at me from across the street that morning. Wayne was coming for dinner. I was eating a bowl of pad kra pao I had picked up on the way home for 60 baht. I was 72 years old, a widower who had almost done a terrible thing in a residence hotel 4 months earlier, and I was sitting on a patio in Thailand with more money in my pocket than I knew what to do with. I called Jenny that night. She picked up on the second ring. She said, "Daddy." I said, "Sweetheart, I need to tell you something. I want to pay you back." She said, "Dad, it is not a loan. That was Grandma's money. It was always going to be yours. Do not do this." I said, "Jenny, I want to send you $150 a month for the next 7 years. That is 12,600. I am giving you back what you gave me and a little extra because you saved my life and I owe you interest. Do not argue with me." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Dad, okay, but only if you promise me you are still saving, not just paying me." "Saving too?" I said. "I am saving too. I have 500 left over on top of that." She said, "Then okay." I hung up. I sat on that patio in the dark. I could hear a small dog barking somewhere. A monk somewhere was chanting through a loudspeaker at the Wat 2 blocks over. The night air was warm and thick, and it smelled like charcoal from somebody's grill and something sweet from a flower I did not know. I said out loud to nobody, "Ellen, honey, I am okay. I am okay now." The months after that first one settled into shape. And I want to be honest with you about what a life at 72 looks like when it works. Because I know how many of you are picturing this and telling yourself it is a fantasy. I got up at 6 every morning because the light came early. I made coffee on the small stove in my apartment. I sat on the little patio with the rubber tree and I drank it, and I watched Kun Som Cha across the street sweep the sidewalk in front of his house, which he did every morning without fail. He would wave at me. I would wave back. That was our morning conversation for the first 6 months. Neither of us needed more. At 7:30 I walked to Auntie Knock's cot. She served me rice soup. She never charged me right. I would hand her 40 baht and she would give me 50 back and pat my arm. I stopped fighting her about it after the first month because Wayne told me she was doing it on purpose and it would be an insult to keep trying to pay her the right amount. She had adopted me. That was what he called it. She had adopted me. I walked to Reister 8 to at 9 3 or 4 mornings a week. That is a coffee shop 2 blocks from the moat, run by a Thai man in his 40s named Arm. He won a world barista competition in 2017, and I did not know that when I walked in the first time and asked for a black coffee. He raised one eyebrow at me and said, "Papa, I make you the flat white. Try it. If you do not like, you pay nothing." I tried it. I paid for it. It was the best coffee I had ever had in my life. He did not say I told you so. He just nodded and rang me up. By week 3, he had it on the counter before I sat down. I met people. This is the part I want to be careful about because the loneliness had almost killed me in Modesto, and I know it is what is keeping some of you where you are. I did not have to work at meeting people in Chiang Mai. I want to say that plain. People met me. Because I was there, because I said good morning to my neighbors, because I let Auntie Knock feed me, because I sat at the same coffee shop and did not hide behind my phone. My neighbors on the left were an older Thai couple named Uncle Prem and Auntie Suni, both in their late 60s. He had been a truck driver most of his life. She had raised 4 kids and now sold banana leaf packets of sticky rice with mango from a little folding table in front of her house on weekends. Auntie Sunny started leaving me packets of that sticky rice at my door on Saturday mornings after my second month. I would find them there when I came out to sweep the patio. She would not let me pay for them. Uncle Prem taught me how to change the oil on my scooter and refused to let me pay him for that either. He said, "Your neighbor, no pay." There's an English word for what these people did, and I do not think we use it in America anymore. The word is neighbor. I had lived in Modesto for 47 years in the same house. I could name you 3 of my neighbors on that street when I left, and only because Ellen was better at that than I was. In 4 months in San Antietam, I knew the names of 11 people within a 2-block radius, and every one of them treated me like family. Wayne and I had breakfast together twice a week. He had been in Chiang Mai for 8 years by the time I got there. Widower like me. His wife had died of a heart attack in 2013 back in Michigan. He was 73 when I arrived, 74 now. He had chosen not to remarry, chosen not to date, and had built a small life around walking, reading, and helping newcomers like me not stumble the way he had stumbled his first year. He introduced me to the Rotary Club that meets every Wednesday at noon at a hotel called the Duang Tawan. 50 members, most of them Thai, some expats. They do charity work at 3 local schools and a home for children with disabilities in a village outside the city. I started going. I did not have money to donate much of, but they did not want money from me. They wanted me. They wanted a 72-year-old American who could sit with the older Thai retirees and drink coffee and talk about how the city had changed. I started volunteering at the school Fern taught at. Fern was Kun Mali, the laundry lady's daughter, 29, a teacher. She asked me one Saturday when I was picking up my laundry if I would be willing to sit with her English club at the school once a month and just talk with the kids. She said, "They need to hear real American English. My English is British. My teacher was British. Their next teacher will be Filipina. They need to hear how you say the words." I said, "Yes. I have been doing it every month since. There are 14 kids in the club, ages 9 through 12. They call me Papa Richard because Fern started it and it stuck the way things stick with kids." One of the girls, a 9-year-old named Pride, asked me last month what my house in America had looked like. I told her it had 3 bedrooms and a garden with a lemon tree. She said, "Papa Richard, why did you leave a house with a lemon tree?" I told her sometimes life makes you leave things you thought you would keep forever. She thought about that for a minute and she said, "Papa, you have plants on your patio in Thailand. That is a small garden. It is okay." Then she went back to her worksheet. I want to tell you about the medical scare because it happened. And if you're anything like me before I left America, this is the one thing that scares you most about doing this. It was August of my second year, about 16 months after I moved. I was walking back from the market with a bag of oranges and I felt something in my chest. Heavy. Not sharp. My left arm felt strange. I sat down on a low wall outside a Wat and I tried to breathe slow. A monk sweep in the courtyard saw me. He did not speak English. He held up one finger, meaning wait. And he ran, actually ran, in his orange robes. He came back 3 minutes later with another monk and a young man in shorts and a t-shirt who spoke English. That young man called for a grab car. He rode with me to Bangkok Hospital Chiang Mai. He would not accept money. He put his hand over his heart. He said, "Papa, You are okay. Please take care, please. Then he left. They took me in immediately. EKG in 11 minutes. Blood work. A cardiologist named Dr. Kitty Pong saw me within 20 minutes. Warm, careful, professional. His English was better than mine. He explained everything as he did it. It was not a heart attack. It was a stress episode combined with mild dehydration and possibly a sinus infection that was making my blood pressure spike. He wanted me to stay 6 hours for observation and a stress test. I stayed 6 hours. They ran everything. When I walked out, my total bill for the emergency visit, the EKG, the blood panel, the stress test, and 6 hours of observation with the cardiologist checking on me twice was 14,400 baht, about $412. My insurance covered 80% of it. My out of pocket was $82. I sat in the Grab on the way home and I thought about what that would have been in Modesto. $15,000, probably more, and I would have been arguing with Medicare and my supplemental for 6 months about the pieces they did not cover. That is, if I had still had a supplemental, which I did not by the time I left. I had let it lapse in month 9 at the residence hotel because I could not afford both it and my rent. I called Jenny the next morning, not the same night. I did not want to wake her up. I told her what happened. I told her the bill. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Dad, send me a picture of the receipt." I did. She called back an hour later. Her voice was strange. She said, "Dad, in Modesto, that would have wiped out everything I sent you and more. Everything Grandma left me and more. You would have been back in a residence hotel by January." I said, "I know." She said, "Dad, when can I come see you?" She came in November of last year. She and Tyler, my grandson, who was 17 by then, Alex, her ex, had the boy for that Thanksgiving, so she had brought him along instead. She had a 2-week window between semesters at the community college where she works in the registrar's office. She used every day of it. They landed at Chiang Mai International at 11 at night. I picked them up in a Grab because the scooter is not going to work for 2 people with suitcases. Jenny hugged me for a long time in the arrivals hall. She stepped back and looked at me and she said, "Daddy, you look different." I said, "Different how?" She said, "Alive." Tyler was standing behind her. Big kid, 17. He said, "Grandpa, you look really good." I hugged him. I said, "Thank you, buddy. So do you." I took them back to my apartment. I had the couch made up for Tyler. Jenny took my bed and I slept on a mat on the floor of the patio for the 12 days they were there. She fought me about it. I did not let her win. I said, "Jenny, you paid for this apartment for the first 3 months. You get the bed." I did not try to sell them anything. I let them see it. I took them to Auntie Knox's cot the first morning. Auntie Knox saw Jenny and put both hands over her mouth and then walked around the cot and hugged her. She said, Papa's daughter is here." She would not let Jenny or Tyler pay for anything for the whole trip. Anytime we walked by that cot, they ate for free. I took them to Rister ate too. Shook Tyler's hand and said, "Your grandpa has excellent taste in coffee." Tyler laughed. Jenny got the flat white, and she agreed it was the best coffee she had ever had. I took them to Uncle Prem and Auntie Suni's for dinner on night 4. Auntie Suni cooked for 3 hours. Green curry, tom kha gai, papaya salad, sticky rice with mango. Uncle Prem talked to Tyler for 2 hours about American trucks. "Tyler, who barely talks to any adult besides his mother, told me later that Uncle Prem was the coolest person he had ever met. I took Jenny and Tyler to Doi Suthep on day 7, 306 steps to the top. My knee was better than it had been in a decade, but I still went slow. Jenny went slow with me. Tyler bounded up ahead and waited for us at the top like a golden retriever. At the top, standing on the terrace, looking out over the whole city as the afternoon light turned gold, Jenny stood next to me and did not say anything for a while. Then she said, "Dad." I said, "Yes, sweetheart." She said, "That night I called you." In November of 2022, I did not tell you this. I woke up at 9:30 at night, sitting up in bed. I could not breathe. I knew something was wrong with you. Alex was already gone by then. I was in the house alone. And I sat up in bed and I could not breathe and I called you. Do you remember that call? I said, "I remember every second of it." She said, "Dad, where are you going to?" I could not talk. I nodded once. She said, "That is what I thought. I have known for 2 years and I have never asked you. I want you to know. I have known." And Dad, if I had not called that night, if I had gone to sleep, I would have lost you. I said, "Jenny." She said, "I want you to promise me something. And this is not about Thailand. This is about you. If it ever gets that dark again, if it ever gets close to that, you pick up the phone and you call me. I do not care what time zone. I do not care what day. You call me." I promised her, standing at the top of Doi Suthep with the wind coming off the mountain and a temple bell ringing somewhere behind us. I promised my daughter that. She wiped her face. Tyler was down at the temple wall taking pictures of a monk who was laughing at something on his phone. Jenny turned to me. She said, "Dad, Mom would have loved this place." I said, "Yeah, she would have." She said she would have. She would have laughed at Auntie Knock. She would have sat with Auntie Suni for hours. She would have hated the scooter. She would have loved the flat white. She would have loved this. I said, "I know." She said, "I'm glad you're here. I've been telling myself for 2 years I was glad. I have not felt it until right now. But I am. I'm so glad you're here." We stood there for a long time and did not say anything else. The bells at the temple started ringing behind us. A dog barked far away. The sun kept going down. Jenny and Tyler flew home the following Sunday. At the airport, Jenny hugged me for a long time. She stepped back and she said, "Daddy, I am coming back next year, and the year after that, and the year after that." I said, "You promise?" She said, "I promise. And I want you home for 2 weeks every Christmas until you cannot fly anymore. I will pay for the tickets." I said, "Jenny, I can pay for my own tickets now. I have been saving for 18 months. I have money." She said, "I know you do, Dad, but I want to, please." I let her. It felt right to let her. Not a rescue, just a Christmas ticket from a daughter to a father who was doing okay. Tyler hugged me and said, "Grandpa, Uncle Prem said I could come stay with him next summer if it is okay with you and with Mom. He said he would teach me how to fix a scooter engine." I said, "Buddy, that is more than okay." Jenny looked at me, half laughing, half not. She said, "Dad, are you telling me my son is going to spend a summer in northern Thailand with a Thai man he met for a week?" I said, "Sweetheart, Uncle Prem is family. Auntie Suni is family. Tyler will be safer in Santitham for a summer than he is in Fresno." She thought about that. She said, "Okay, next summer we will talk about it." They went through security. Jenny turned around at the last second and waved. Tyler did too. I waved back. I stood in that small airport for a few minutes after they were out of sight. Then I walked back out to the taxi lane and I took a grab home for 80 baht, which is about $2.30. And I sat on my patio and I did not talk to anybody for the rest of the day. I went home to California for Christmas last year, 10 days at Jenny's place in Fresno. Tyler had grown 2 inches since November. I met Jenny's new boyfriend, a guy named Ray, decent, works at Central Valley Community Bank, kind eyes, made me a drink the first night without making a big deal of it. I liked him. Ellen would have liked him. Being back in California was strange. I noticed it the second I walked out of Fresno Yosemite International. Everything was too big, too spread out, too loud in a specific American way, the way that people are always in a small hurry even when they have nowhere to be. I went with Jenny to save Maud on my second day, and I could not stop doing the math out loud. A carton of eggs was $6.20. A pound of ground beef was $7. A gallon of milk was $5.80. I had been eating full sit-down dinners at nice restaurants in Chiang Mai for the equivalent of $7. Jenny laughed at me and said, "Dad, you're that guy now. You're the guy who lives overseas and comes home and cannot stop talking about the grocery prices." I said, "Jenny, how does anybody eat here?" She said, "Dad, they do not." That is the answer. A lot of them do not. That is what I have been trying to tell you for a decade. I drove past the old house on day 4, just to look. I did not stop. It had been repainted since the foreclosure, a different color. A minivan in the driveway I did not recognize. New curtains in the front window. A tricycle on the walkway. A young family lived there now. Ellen had loved that house. She would have wanted a young family in it. I did not cry. I want to tell you that. I thought I would. I sat in the rental car across the street for maybe 2 minutes and I looked at the house and I felt almost nothing. Not sadness, not longing. Just a small quiet gratitude that somebody with kids was living in it now. I drove away. I did not go back the rest of the trip. By day 7, I was ready to go home. And I want to tell you what a strange word that is when you find yourself using it. Home. I meant Chiang Mai. Not the house I had lived in for 47 years. Not Modesto. Not California. A small ground floor apartment in Santithem, where a man named Kun Somchai swept his sidewalk every morning, and a woman named Auntie Nok made me rice soup, and a laundry lady named Kun Malay called me Papa Richard. I flew back on the 28th of December. Wayne picked me up. He drove me back to my apartment through the quiet streets. It was almost midnight. Just before we got out of the truck, he looked over at me and he said, "Welcome home, brother." I said, "It is good to be home." He said, "You know that is a big sentence, right? What you just said." I said, "I know." He clapped me on the shoulder and helped me carry my suitcase inside. I want to give you the honest present tense now, because it is what I would have wanted somebody to give me 2.5 years ago when I was sitting in that residence hotel with a bottle and a pistol on the desk. I am 77 years old. I have been in Chiang Mai for a little over 2.5 years. I get up around 6 every morning. I make coffee. I sit on my patio. I watch Kun Somchai sweep his sidewalk. I walk to Auntie Nok's cart. She feeds me. I walk back. Some mornings I go to register 82 and Aunt has a flat white on the counter before I sit down. Some mornings I sit at home and read. I tutor the English club at Fern School 1 afternoon a month. Priya is 10 now. She still asks me about the lemon tree. I have dinner at Uncle Prem and Auntie Suni's every other Sunday. Auntie Suni has taught me how to cook 3 Thai dishes: papaya salad, tom kha gai, and a stir-fried morning glory called pad phak boong that she says I still overcook. She fusses at me about it. I like being fussed at. I go to Rotary on Wednesdays. I go to a small English language book club Wayne runs on Fridays at his apartment. 4 other guys and 1 Australian woman named Beryl, who is 76 and reads twice as fast as any of us and never misses a meeting. I ride my scooter to the market on Saturday mornings. The vendors know me now. The mango lady saves me the good ones. The woman at the egg stall throws in an extra one when I buy a dozen and does not let me pay for it. My knee is better than it was in Modesto. Walking every day and losing 21 pounds will do that. My blood pressure came down 18 points in the first year and another 6 points in the second year. Dr. Anong at Bangkok Hospital measures it every 6 months and shakes her head at me and grins and says, "Kun Richard, you keep doing what you are doing." I have savings again, real savings. I put about $1,000 away most months, sometimes 1,200. I send Jenny 150 a month like I promised. My checking account has almost $11,000 in it. In another 18 months, I will have paid Jenny back the whole 12,000 her grandmother left her, plus the little extra I promised. And I will still have savings. At 77 years old, on Social Security alone, I have savings. I do not have a girlfriend. I am not looking for one. Ellen was my whole life for 49 years, and I am not ready, and I may never be ready. That is fine. I have friends. I have neighbors who call me family. I have a daughter who is coming back in April with Ray, and a grandson who is coming in June for a full summer to learn from Uncle Prem, Uncle. My son from a previous relationship, who I have not talked about much because we have not been close for 25 years, wrote to me for the first time in 9 years last month. He saw a Facebook post of Jenny's from her visit. He said he wanted to know how I was. I have not written back yet. I will. I am working on the words. I miss Ellen every day. That does not go away. I miss the sound of her humming while she made coffee. I miss the way she said my name when she was tired. I do not carry her ghost around this apartment the way I carried her ghost around that house in Modesto and the Residence Hotel in Modesto. She is with me in a lighter way now. I think she would be glad about that. I want to tell you something, and it is the whole reason I sat down to tell this. There was a night in November of 2022 in a residence hotel on 9th Street in Modesto, California, when a 72-year-old man sat on the edge of a bed with a bottle in one hand and a service pistol on a desk in front of him and thought his life was over. He was wrong. He did not know he was wrong. Everything in his life told him he was right. His wife was dead. His house was gone. His savings were gone. His country charged him 3 times his rent for a room he could not afford. There was nothing in the mirror or in his checking account or in the streets outside his window that told him he had any other option than the one on that desk. He was still wrong. There is more life on the other side of the worst night of your life than you can possibly imagine while you're inside it. I want you to hear that. I am not going to tell you Thailand is the answer. Thailand is my answer. Your answer might be Mexico, or the Philippines, or Ecuador, or Portugal, which is getting harder, or Vietnam, or Malaysia, or a paid-off double wide in a small town in Alabama with a garden and a church you like. There are answers you have not considered, because nobody in America teaches this. Nobody tells you your social security can go 3 or 4 or 5 times as far somewhere else. Nobody tells you that you are allowed to leave, but you are. At 70 or 72 or 77, you are allowed to leave. You're allowed to take one suitcase and one passport and go find out what the rest of your life looks like, somewhere the numbers work. I almost did not get to find out. I want you to find out. I want to tell you what a normal day looks like now. Not the highlights, the normal. I woke up this morning at 5:42. The light was already starting to come in through the patio door. I lay there for a minute listening. Somewhere down the street, a rooster was going, and there's always a rooster somewhere in Santiago, and I have made my peace with the roosters. I got up. My knee was a little stiff because it rained yesterday, but not bad. I put water on for coffee. I stood at the little kitchen window and I watched Hun Somchai come out of his house across the street with his broom. He looked over. I raised my hand. He raised his. We do that every morning. Neither of us has ever said word during that exchange in 2.5 years. I sat on my patio and I drank the coffee and I watched a small green lizard run up the leg of the plastic chair opposite me. There is always a lizard on the patio in the morning. Auntie Sune told me the Thai word for them once, jing chok, and I forgot it by the end of the day, and I have never asked her again because I am embarrassed. I should ask her again. She would not mind. At 7:15, I walked to Auntie Knox's cot. She was already stirring the pot. She saw me and pointed at a stool. She said, "Papa, you late? Where you been?" I said, "Auntie, it is 7:15, same as every day." She said, "Late." "Sit." She fed me rice soup with pork and ginger and a soft egg. 40 baht. I gave her 50 and she put my 10 baht change on the table and slid it back to me with one finger like it was a chess move and looked at me. I put it in my pocket. That is how we do it now. I walked back to my apartment. On the way, I passed Uncle Prem sitting in front of his gate on a small wooden stool with a cup of coffee. He waved me over. He said, "Papa Richard, Auntie Sunny says Sunday dinner, green curry. She's asking is Wayne coming." I said, "Uncle, I will ask him. Probably yes." He said, "Ask him." I said, "I will ask him." He nodded. That is a full conversation between me and Uncle Prem some days. I got back to my apartment. I read for an hour on the patio. Biography of Ulysses S. Grant that Wayne loaned me. Around 10, I put on my helmet and rode the scooter to Bangkok Hospital for a routine 6-month checkup with Dr. Anong. She took my blood pressure 3 times, told me it was better than her own, told me to keep walking. Total time in the hospital, 38 minutes. Total bill, 700 baht, about $20. I rode back through the mid-morning heat. I stopped at the market to buy oranges. The mango lady saw me and pointed at a small bag she had already put aside and said, "Papa, good ones." I paid her 60 baht and she smiled at me the way she smiles at every customer, which is a smile that has been running the same market stall for 22 years, and I rode home. That is a day. That is the kind of day I have most days now. Nothing dramatic. Nothing on YouTube would ever make a video about it. I am a 77-year-old widower who eats rice soup in the morning and reads on a patio and has friends in a small neighborhood who look out for him. That is the whole thing. I want to say the last thing I need to say before we finish. If you're sitting somewhere right now watching this and you're close to where I was that night in November of 2022. I need to speak to you specifically, not to the people who are just curious about Thailand, to you, to the man or woman on the edge of a bed with something on the desk in front of you, to the person who has stopped answering their kids' calls because they cannot bear to lie one more time about how they are doing, to the person who has counted out their pills. I need you to hear me, please. I am sitting on a balcony in Thailand right now because a phone call from my daughter interrupted me. I want you to have your phone call. And if the phone is not going to ring, I want you to be the phone call. Pick up. Call somebody. Call your daughter. Call your son. Call a brother you have not talked to in 10 years. Call the veterans crisis line at 988. Press 1. Call the general crisis line at 988. Call somebody. There is more life on the other side of tonight than you can possibly see from where you're sitting. I could not see it either. I did not know it was there. It was there. It is there. You do not have to move to Thailand. You do not have to move anywhere. You just have to get past tonight. And then tomorrow. And then the next week. And then when your head clears a little, you can start looking at your options. Because you have options. Real options. Not the ones you have been telling yourself. I lost my wife. I lost my house. I lost my savings. I lost 47 years of a life I thought I would die inside of. I lost my dignity for a while in a room on 9th Street. Thailand did not give me any of that back exactly. Ellen is still gone. The house is still gone. Those years are still gone. But Thailand gave me a life again. A different life. A quieter life. A life where a woman named Auntie Nog is upset with me because I was 2 minutes late to breakfast. A life where a man named Uncle Prem waves me over to talk about Sunday dinner. A life where my knee hurts less and my blood pressure is down and my daughter looks at me and says I look alive. At 77, that is what a life is. A knee that hurts less. A daughter who is not scared for you anymore. A grandson who wants to spend the summer near you. A neighbor who taught you to change your own oil. A woman who feeds you rice soup and yells at you for being late. That is what I lost. That is what I found again. I want to mention one thing before I sign off. There is a book called The Honest Move that walks through the real numbers on doing what I did. The cities compared side by side. The visa systems in Thailand and the Philippines and Mexico and Portugal and Ecuador. How healthcare actually works in each country. The traps that catch people in their first year overseas. I did not have it. I put a lot of it together the hard way from strangers who were kind to me on Facebook groups at 2 in the morning. If you are seriously thinking about a move like this, it will save you months of stumbling. There is a link in the description if you want to check it out. No pressure. I just wish somebody had handed it to me in the residence hotel. If this story meant something to you, if it reached you where you are sitting right now, I would appreciate it if you would hit the like button and subscribe. I have more stories coming, real ones, from real people who thought their life was over and were wrong. My name is Richard. I am 77 years old. I lost everything at 72. I sat on the edge of a bed in Modesto with a pistol on the desk. My daughter called me at 9:42 at night on a Tuesday in November, and I answered the phone and I put the pistol back in the case. I got on a plane 4 months later with 2 suitcases and $12,000 from my dead wife's mother by way of my daughter. Thailand gave me a life again. It gave me back a version of myself I thought was gone forever. You are worth the phone call. You are worth the plane ticket. You are worth the next chapter you cannot see from where you are sitting. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourselves. I will see you in the next one.